Hello, my name is Debbie, owlandgatorstitcher. Welcome to Flosstube number 25. Today is Tuesday, January 4th, 2022. This is a video mainly about cross stitch, but sometimes about what I'm reading and watching and life thrown in. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope that you enjoyed your new year and had a good holiday season in general. We had a relatively quiet holiday. My parents came for Christmas Day and we had a nice brunch with them, and it was just a nice time, a quiet time to spend time with family, with them. And for New Year's, my husband and I did what we really love to do, which is we watched football. So we were really excited to watch the games. The games themselves weren't as good as we thought they were, but there have been some other really great bowl games, and we really do enjoy watching football. That is a big part of the holiday festivities for us. In personal news, I got my Invisalign off. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Invisalign, it's a type of braces basically. And I had to get them because I was starting to get some discomfort on my lower teeth. And so we just went ahead and did everything. And I am very happy they are off because while they're supposed to be clear, of course they're not. And there are little buttons on every tooth, and you have to wear liners or trays or whatever they're called all the time, except when you're eating. And it just sort of makes life inconvenient. So I'm even things like having a cup of tea, you have to think, okay, I got to take it out, I got to drink the tea, then I got to go and brush my teeth. And it's just sort of inconvenient. And I love to drink tea, and I've actually cut way back because just the inconvenience of having a cup of tea and not wanting to stain everything just was sort of a pain. So I'm supposed to be wearing my retainer for the first month all the time. But I took them out for you, for this video because I'm tired of sounding like Elmer Fudd when I was talking. So with all of that, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about my stitching. So I was a member of No New Starts 2021, and I successfully completed that. I did use my freebie start for that, but come I think it was December 13th. We could start as many things as we wanted, and I went into a Startpalooza, and I believe that I started 15 projects. So I now have a total of 49 WIPs, works in progress. Many of them are BAPs, which are big, awesome projects, or however you choose to define BAP. And so, I would say well over a third. I do have a few smalls thrown in. A few of my other projects are larges and a couple of mediums, although I think it's just the way that the group defines mediums it's a very narrow range. So I am doing No New Starts 2022. I'm doing Work Your WIPs, which means that I start off the year with a freebie, and then for every WIP I finish, I can start another one of the same size category or smaller. So we'll see how long that lasts. I was towards the end getting really tired of starting a lot of things, but I really wanted to make sure, that I had some things going just in case I felt like refreshing what I was working on. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and start showing you my stitching. So as I show almost every video, the first one I'm going to show you is Old World Map. This is by Artecy. This is the large version. And this is my oldest project. I started it in December 2019. And I don't work on it every day, but when I sort of have time in the morning, I pick it up for between half hour and an hour, and I work on it. So basically, it's going to be very hard to see what I've worked on since I last spoke with you. I actually did move the Q-snap, but basically what I've been working on, you can sort of see it down here a little bit and up here. I'm starting, or I guess it's up here. I am starting to work with 3865, which a lot of times is referred to as winter white. I still have 60,000 stitches left of that color in this piece, and so I decided I'm just going to start attacking it. Over here is, you can sort of see the edge of the circle here. This is basically the North Pole. So that's going to be a lot of what I am working on in the coming year. Because as you know, in the North Pole, there's not really much of a landmass there, so it's just a lot of white, which is the background color of this map. So I will be working on 3865 for a while, or until I get tired of using that color and want to move on to something else. But that's where I stand now with this piece. One of my new starts, and this was actually my last new start, this is Water Garden by Joan Elliott. For my new starts, I had picked out, I think, 7 projects that I definitely wanted to start. and I started all of those, and then I said, okay, I'm going to let the wheel pick all the remaining ones because I had a lot of things kitted up. No way I was going to start all of those. So I said, how do I decide which ones I want to start? And for the most part, I did stick to the wheel. I decided on a couple projects that came up. They were really, really small ones. And like one day, a small one came up and it was one of those freebies that you can get in the roller cross stitch. And I just wasn't feeling it. So I spun it again. And another really, really small kit came up. And I said, you know what? I'm not feeling this. I'm not going to have a new start today. I'm just going to work on what I have. And I would say, but every other day that I was spinning the wheel, I did pick what it chose, except for the last day. It spun up, one of my mirabilias came up, but I already had started another mirabilia. And I'm like, okay, I really like a lot of Joan Elliott's Pretty Ladies. I actually like a lot of her designs. And so I decided this would be a good one to start. So I did actually choose this one. And so I did for no new starts, you have to put in 200 stitches for it to be considered a project that you're carrying over. So I'd done the 200 stitches. But then for magical stitches this year, they're doing it a little bit differently. But for the weekly prompt, one of it was put stitches into your newest whip, which is this one, because this one was started on December 30th. So right now it's sort of self-guided. So you set a goal and you do it. And my goal was 500 stitches. And so I was able to put a lot in. I started on the bottom left of this pattern. So down here. And the reason why I did that, partially because the way that this pattern is shaped, it's very hard to start in the upper left, which I normally would do. And so it was just easier for me to start in the bottom left. And so this is sort of, she's sitting on a lily pad. So all this green is sort of the lily pad. And then I picked up a color and started working on the folds of her dress. This fabric is 32 count Fabric Flair by Pond. So it is a printed fabric called Pond. It is a 32 count even weave. It's a printed fabric. I'm using right now the called for DMC. The first color I should have used if I sort of really truly wanted to start in the bottom left-hand corner was a Krynic, but I didn't have that Krynic. So I have, with my local LNS, I put in an order for it. She apparently is having problems getting some supplies from Krynic right now, so she'll get them when she gets them, but it's not like I'm going to be finishing the entire pattern anytime soon. So it will get here when it gets here. I know I will be pulling this out later in the month because this is also one of their monthly tasks as well, as to work on your newest project. So that is Joan Elliott's Water Goddess. So also in Magical Stitches, there's they call the Random DMC Challenge, which is basically the moderator of the group at some point spun a wheel and came up with 52 DMC colors. And the challenge is to take a color each week and do 100 stitches in that color. And you have to do them in order. So that, they said they just spun a wheel. It feels like they picked the most obscure colors because a lot of people are struggling finding those colors and, finding projects with those colors. Certainly anyone can just go to one of the big box stores and pick up the colors. They didn't pick any of the variegateds or anything like that. So the first color was 3362, which is a green. So this is, I'll show you the picture first. This is from a magazine from the 1990s, Cross Stitch and Country Crafts. It's Sister Bears, Caroline and Emma. And I knew there was a little block that had the color. I didn't realize how little of the block actually had this color. And I had done the hat, which had already had it. So I was only able between here and a little bit in the baby bear's bow tie. Or ribbon or whatever you want to call it. I did 19 stitches of that before I finished all of the green in this pattern. So again, this is a piece that's relatively small. I should, one week I should just bust it out and finish it, but I never seem to have that week where I just want to do that. So I obviously needed another piece to complete the remaining stitches, which was clarified by the admins that's allowed. So I pulled out Oak Drive by Mystic Stitch. So this is a paper pattern. So I absolutely love this picture. It reminds me of home here in Florida, northern Florida, where we do have these live oaks and with all the Spanish moss and everything hanging off of it. I absolutely Love these trees and the sort of canopied look that it gives. Don't love this pattern so much simply because it's a paper pattern, and it's Mystic Stitch can be very dense on their patterns. It's a lot of stitches on one page, but nonetheless, so I don't pull this up as much as I should, but nonetheless, you can see all of these sort of stitches over here and down here are the 3362. So here's fingers crossed that I actually counted correctly. And then you can see I had started this piece with the parked threads and just realized parking isn't for me. I know how to do it. My brain can get its head around it, but it really does slow me down, especially on a confetti heavy piece like this. So you can sort of see I was doing on this one the sort of step stair down, and I started here. You can see I started working the parked threads, and I still have these bottom ones here. So at some point, again, I just need to sit down one day and finish off these parked threads, but don't know when that day will come. And then another new start I had, I think many of you are familiar with this piece. This is Magic Study from Heaven and Earth Designs, the rainbow version, artwork by Rose Kahn. When they re-released this pattern as the rainbow version, I did not get the limited edition one, which was more purple. I did not get that one when they sold it, so I was very excited when this one came out. Excuse me. Here's where I am now. So a lot of blue. And basically, and this is, I think, 820, and there are 18,000 stitches in this pattern. This is by far my largest piece. This is not a max color, so there's fewer than 100 colors in the whole pattern, but that does mean that there's a lot of the stitches that are there. I think it's like 444,000 stitches total in this piece, maybe a little bit more. So I'm like at 0.13% yesterday. I was very excited. But I pulled this out because I'm doing through the Magazine Monthly Challenge. I'm doing their Bringo, which is you basically set up a bingo board, but you randomly put numbers 1 through 25. It's not like WIPGO where you sort of follow the standard pattern. This is, I spun a wheel and said, okay, for the first block, I said, okay, spun the wheel and whatever number came up. And then you had to assign projects before January 1st to each of those blocks. One of them was to stitch in blue. I knew I was using blue on this one, so I just assigned this. So it was a good excuse for me to pull this out yesterday and put another 400 stitches or so. Even though we only had to do 100 stitches, I was working on it. The stitches up quickly, so when I'm sitting down doing it, I just sort of fly through it and work on it. And then my two other pieces, which are my two real focus pieces for the year. So the first one is High Intensity, charted by Artecy, artwork by Agnew, and this is a cropped version, and Artecy cropped it. So I did. This is what I purchased. So there is a regular size version, which basically has a lot more of the jungle that you can see. And so I did show you, I think, where I was in my whip parade, but I wanted to pull this out of the Q-snap so you can see what I worked on. I worked on this one a lot between mid-December and the new year. It became my evening piece because I really wanted to be able to move the Q-snap. And so I finished, obviously I think I had done all of this already. I finished sort of here in his body, and then obviously I've moved the Q-snap. This is where the Q-snap is. I've moved it over. This is the right-hand side. So the top right corner is there. And so basically you can start to see this is the dark spots going down his spine, and this up here is background for the jungle. So I calculated that I have to do about 600 stitches on this every week if I want to complete it by the end of the year. So it's a lot of fun to work on. And again, this is a 14 count aida, so it's so easy for me to see, and it just flies when I start to work on it. And also because it's a 14 count aida, the counting isn't as bad. Once I sort of got all of these spots in there, stitches, I should say stitches are not spots. Once I got these stitches in here and I'm confident that they are in the right place, then just, I think maybe here is the only place that there's more like 1 10 by 10 square that I haven't done yet. So it's very easy for me to count and just go through. So in the past, I used to pick, like cross country is my preferred method, but what I would do was I would pick a color and I would cut up, take the length of the thread and whatever was cut off and use all of that. So like obviously here with the 310, I would do, have my thread that was like say 18 inches and 6 of those, and then boom, done. And then I move on to the next color. What I've decided to do to the extent possible is to pick like the majority colors initially and color complete them as much as possible on the page. So I will keep working on the 310 until I finish this page, or for some reason I finish the skein. Rather than just jumping into a new skein, I would finish off the skein and then pick a different color. Just a way to keep my stitching fresh. There's no advantage doing it that way or the other, but it also means that I don't have to, some of this is also just taking away the decision process. So rather than thinking, okay, what next color should I do? Working on 310, I'm going to keep working on 310 until I finish it. In this section, and again, I'm doing this on Pattern Keeper, so there is no page break. And I will say, so Pattern Keeper had an update. I don't know when the update actually happened, but I refreshed my system a few weeks ago and I noticed some of the changes right away. It's great. They sort of have put at the top now on Pattern Keeper, like the center arrow and the side arrows, so you can sort of see, and then there's a dot where the actual center of the project is. Lovely. I could not figure out what the orange dotted lines meant. And I spent a lot of time sort of going, what does this mean? I couldn't quite figure it out. It took me several days for the coin to drop to realize that was just the page breaks on the pattern. Originally, they had just been a thick black line, and I guess some people, whatever, she updated the software so that it would then be, rather than being the thick black line like you might have on a paper pattern, it's now this orange dotted line so that you're not confused with like a 10 by 10 square. Never confused me, but, spent several days trying to figure out what the orange dotted lines meant, only to realize that. So anyhow, that's high intensity. And then the last piece I worked on that I'd like to show you, I show this really every video, this is Cats in the Toy Box, artwork by Lesley Anne Ivory, charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. And did not work on this as much as usual because I was spending a lot of my time trying to make good progress on high intensity. But here's where I am now. So obviously I've moved the Q-snap since the last time you saw it. And I'm doing the same method where I'm picking a color and trying to color complete as much as possible. So the first one was 780, which is all this sort of gold down here. And so that really allowed me, this is the sort of calico kitty, able to get a lot in, a little bit on the ginger, but not much. And I think this is part of the basket down there. I'm not 100% sure yet. And then after I finished that, I picked up 310, so the little black spots on top of the calico head, and sort of coming down here and starting to work on it, but it also allowed me to get the kitty's eyes in. So it will be really great when I start watching the calico come in and see her definition. So that is all I have to show you about what I've stitched on. I'll talk a little bit about my plans, and as you can tell, a lot of what I do is through challenge groups. And so I sort of day to day, I have an idea of what I'm going to do every month, but day to day sometimes it will shift based on if something comes up, or like in Bringo, I know which projects I picked and I deliberately tried to double dip dump some of them, but exactly what day I pick up one of those projects depends on what it's called. So for one of the groups I'm in is letters of the month. This year we're starting from Z and going down to A, dropping 2 letters. So I picked O Joyous Day as my first one for Z, and I said because zigzag, because it's got zigzag designs here and on the border. It might be stretching a little bit. I'm okay with that because I think I had 3 or 4 letters where I really could not. I didn't have a pattern that started with that, and I also, nor was there a major motif with that. So zigzag it is. No one has told me no. So anyhow, I have not worked on this yet this month, so this is where I was after the whip parade. So I basically have the top row of flowers done. So need to get 500 stitches in this. It may actually even happen today, simply because I'm also doing So You Think You Can Stitch, one of the challenges, and I could stitch on something that says something you're giving as a gift. And I think I'm going to make this a wedding piece commemorating my husband's and my anniversary. So you can think of it as a wedding gift that I'm giving to him. By the time it's done, probably 20 years late. But I've decided that's what I'm going to make this. So I've basically, again, almost finished the first row of flowers. This flower needs a little bit more, and then I can move down. Next piece for letters of the month. Well, why? A year at Hawthorne Hollow. I know a lot of people in the group, sorry, this is probably a better picture to see. A lot of people struggle with why, but year at Hawthorne Hollow fits everything. So I'm going down. So I'm actually on the July block. And here's where I am, and basically all I need to do, which is a lot of stitches, but it will be fast once I start it, is just fill in the water. So all of the objects are filled in, so I don't even need the pattern. I just can start going back and forth, and only if I see something that looks a little bit weird will I stop and look at the pattern. But it's going to be a lot of 341, which is the color. It's a very pretty color, so I will enjoy stitching it. So my goal this month, so my official goal is 500 stitches, which is what I set for the group, but I really would love to get this entire block done this month, so then I can then move on to October, which is the bottom block. And I do have a lot of excess fabric on this, so that will then allow me to cut off the excess fabric and use it for something else. And that is a 36 count Heartland by Picture This Plus, and I am doing 2/1. For Whip Go, I think many of you are familiar with Whip Go, so I'm not going to go into a long explanation on what it is. This is, so the numbers that were drawn were 2 and 19. I think this was number 19 actually. So this is Let Freedom Ring by Lila Studio. Fell in love with this pattern from the day that I first saw it. So here's where I am now. So this is basically the first page finished, and I am also going down on this one so that I can lop off the extra fabric as well. So not sure, again, get it done this month. I don't know exactly when I'm going to pull it out. And then my second Whip Go piece was, this was number 2, I believe. So this is Mystic Stitch Tug of War. Again, this is a paper pattern, so it's kind of slow for me, and I am in the background right now, so it's not something that I naturally gravitate towards to pick up. But here's where I am now. So this is page 1, sort of goes here, and then this is page 2. And this line here is where that clothespin is. So when I work on this, I'll continue to work on the background here. It should go relatively quickly, because again, if I make one little mistake, no one's going to know, because whether or not it's 890 or 895 in one place, it's not really going to be a big deal. But I do, again, I know I've mentioned this in the past, I do like the way that it's very dark over here, but then it does sort of lighten up near the sparrow's tail, and then is lighter here. So I do like that contrast. Although I think I said this before, once I finish this page, I might go down just to give some variety and start to work on the quilt. So that is all of the stitching that I have to show you. I'm sure there'll be other projects that I pull out as they are either calling to me, or there's a prompt or something that inspires me to work on it. So that is all of the sort of my stitching that I have to show you. I have some haul, and I also was very fortunate to get from a stitcher. She gifted to me some of her stuff, so I will show you that to you. I know the last time I showed some of my purchases was in mid-November. I'm not going to show you everything. I think that would be too much, but yesterday I got 2 fabrics in the mail, so I thought I'd show these to you. So this is Fortnite Fabrics. This is the last of their gray, so it's sort of a pale gray. You can see there. It's called Pack Hunter. Okay, yes, that's what it's called. And the way they do their club, it's you sign up for their colorway, and the colorway itself lasts a year, and then they change it up. So that club is finished. I'm not going to subscribe again, not because I don't love their fabric, I absolutely do, but I have a lot of fabric right now, and so I just want to sort of give that one a little bit of a break. And it's sort of a good ending time. And then this is the one from Bestitch Me. This is called It's a Mystery. This is also a 32 count lugana. So it's coming up a little bit bluer there, but it is kind of a grayish purpley blue. That's the only way I can say it. It's a lovely sort of Stormy Night color. So if I ever, for example, were to do Stargazer, I don't even own the pattern by Mirabilia, but if it fit, this might be a good fabric to use for that. And then I also got gift certificates for Christmas. So I've been eyeing this up for a long time. So this is a Dimensions Gold Kit. So I've seen this one, what is it even called? I don't even remember. Yeah, Wind Moon Fairy. I just love the way that it looks. And I know like Carla Being Crafty is working on this, but I've seen others as well, at least who have it if they haven't worked on it. And again, I'm a sucker for blues, so this one just really called to me. Also, to my local needlework store, I got a gift certificate to that. And I did purchase a lot of things, but a lot of it's sort of like plain fabric and also key snaps. And you've seen one key snap, you've seen them all. And but I did pick up this one. I have seen so many people working on this, or at least purchasing it. I believe Ellen from Maximum Cross Stitch Power Hour has actually finished this one. I don't want to commit her to that in case she was working on a different one. But nonetheless, this is just, I've seen a lot of people working on this. I believe Stacy the 911 Stitcher also has started this. Again, I'm not planning to start on anytime soon, but I'm glad that I have it as part of my collection. So the stitcher who gifted me passed on some of her patterns. She is a friend of my mother's, and I didn't actually get a chance to see her. She was out of town, but she knows that I'm a cross stitcher, and so she offered up some things to my mother last time I went to visit her, and they live in the same building. So next time that I go over there, if she's available. And also I'm a little bit hesitant right now with Omicron because it's really bad right now. But whenever things sort of calm down, I do very much want to thank her, and I may gift her something that I've already completed. Not of the stuff she gave me, because that's not going to be done in a while, but things that are sitting in the end of the bed box. So this was one I picked up. This is called The Good Old Days from Stony Creek. And so it's just a lot of different patterns in here. So older book, but a lot of really great things. And then this is one I had never heard of before, it's Buckley Moss, and this one is Together in the Park. And this is, she had a lot of these pattern books, a lot of these from this designer. I'm not familiar with this designer or this design house, but I just really thought this one was sweet, so this is the only one I took from there. And she was apparently her husband was in the military, so lived in a lot of different places. And I will say, so when I saw this price tag here, you can sort of see it says AFES, and that is sort of like the commissary, so to speak, that you see on a lot of bases. And when especially when I lived in Turkey, we would go to the commissary. We didn't have one where I lived, but in the capital there was one, and it was where you could get what I called comfort food, and just sort of American products that you couldn't get on, like, just not because they were scarce, but just, things like, so for Thanksgiving, that's where I would go buy the Cool Whip and the canned pumpkin and all that stuff that just is very American, and you can't get in other, maybe you can't get them in other places. So I laughed when I saw that price tag. It brought up nice memories for me. I also got from her The Houses is Hawk Run Hollow. So obviously I don't really want to start this one until I finish my other one. I am not as brave as Carolyn Zook, who has multiple Hawk Run Hollows going at the same time. And I probably would not do the whole thing. I think I've looked at this, and if when I start it, I will probably only do 9 of the blocks. I don't really love the sentiment that the sort of poem that's written sort of in some of the blocks, and I sort of already have, as we do, planned out like where I would do the house, but not have the things, have what it says. And then obviously, like this block, if you took out the words, there wouldn't be much stitched there. Obviously this is a while off, so I have time to, I might reconsider. I then got this little cute one with a lot of little cats. Again, the cat lady needs more, can't have enough cats in my life. Stitched, stuffed, real. And when I say stuffed, I mean stuffed animals, not taxidermy. And then this is Diane Gravener Designs. So a little cute little girl sitting on a bench. And I believe that she has done a lot of these patterns. So some of them are not, they're not marked on, but they're not necessarily in the best shape either. In terms of, you'll see when I get to there's some lavender and lace and the unwieldiness of that. And she's like had to tape them back together because she's, so the photo came out, but this is Amira, Santa's Magic. And then several lavender and lace. I'm not going to read off all the names. So this is one you can, it's very thick and taped together, but really pretty one. Another one. Here's a mother and child. And here's a Christmas angel. So I was very, very fortunate to be gifted those. So thank you to my mom's friend who kindly shared her stash with me. And apparently my mother had said that she, like in her apartment, she's just got a lot of her stitching still displayed and all that. And it's lovely that she's able to, to keep and enjoy what she has. So, and that's all I have for the stitching. A little bit about what I have been watching. So my husband and I finally got Apple TV because at some point we're going to cut the cord for our satellite TV. And so we started adding on more streaming services so we can get the content we want without having to pay the exorbitant cost of satellite TV. And so we got Apple TV recently, and so I'm catching up, but we're watching The Morning Show, which is with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon. So I believe the first year it came out was in 2019, and then they took a hiatus during COVID, during 2020, and they may have started filming at the end of 2020. We've just started season 2. So it's been, I find it fascinating. I had no idea what it was going to be. I knew there was going to be a dynamic between the two women anchors. Sorry, to go back, it's about a TV show, and it starts off basically the day. It's the sort of standard morning news show. There's a male and female anchor, and starts off, and the male anchor has been fired because he is accused of sexual misconduct with staff, and it's just very interesting. So it's sort of about his co-host, but then it's much more into the politics of working on the show, and it examines the Me Too movement, and the character it's not, I would say it's sexual misconduct, but it's not tradition. It's not that sort of, it's not Harvey Weinstein rape, but it's more about misuse of position because he would have flings with women, and then if things got uncomfortable between them, he would have them moved on. So not fired, but moved on. He was the star or co-star, and they weren't allowed to work on his team directly with him anymore. So it disadvantageous to their careers. But then one of them used it to actually, unwittingly used it. She went to complain and she got a promotion. So all of that. And so, but my husband and I think it's very Shakespearean in some way, because there's a lot of factions forming and moving and what's best, and sort of what gets lost in all of it until the very end is how these actions actually affect the people, the women who somewhat, it's hard to say that they necessarily were one of them clearly was voluntarily engaging in the activity, but then when the relationship ended, was adversely affected. There's another one where it is the guy, it's not the guy who got fired, but another guy and much younger person, and there's nothing hinky about it, but but just sort of how people knowing about that relationship affects the way they perceive her and why she's engaged in the relationship. Anyhow, my husband and I just find it absolutely fascinating. So if you haven't watched The Morning Show and that sort of, I don't know, the issue, but then also back room, executive room. How do you get around it? And especially, you know, I mean, it's not, the show says it's not based on Matt Lauer. I don't know enough about that situation to say that it is or it isn't, but there's one scene where you see someone pushing the button under the desk and the office door shuts. And that was something that people said Matt Lauer had, so women would go in there and he could shut the door from his desk. And they have that scene as well. So take it or leave it, how much is based on him. But anyhow, I recommend that if you're looking for something like that and you have Apple TV, give it a go if you haven't. And of course, the acting is incredible. Reese Witherspoon, Jennifer Anderson, Steve Carell plays the anchor who gets kicked off. And he does, you know, it's a bit of a different role than a lot of things you see him in, because it's not a comedy. But he does brilliantly in it. And the woman whose name I don't know, who plays Hannah. So initially you think it's kind of a small part, but it actually is a big part towards the end. Anyhow, and she does really well. So I just encourage you, if you are looking for something, go see it. Anyhow, now I think I'm rambling. So I know there's a lot of Flosstube content out there right now. So if you stuck around this long, thank you so much. I hope that you are enjoying all the whip parades that you see, and I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks, showing you updates on my stitching. Happy stitching, everyone.